afraid of the treatment. You were afraid of what the community would think.
Because the community is all we have.
After listening, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment before the next part. Hannah sat on a hard wooden chair in the corridor of a small county hospital, nervously twisting a crumpled handkerchief in her hands. Muffled voices drifted through the frosted glass of the oncologist's office. Her 6-year-old son, Daniel, lay on the exam table inside, and she waited for the verdict she feared more than anything in the world. The door finally creaked open. Dr. Margaret Thompson, a woman in her 50s with kind but tired eyes, gave her a nod. "Mrs. Miller, please come in." Hannah stepped inside, her heart pounding, her gaze skittering away from the cold medical equipment and the anatomy posters on the walls. All of it reminded her how fragile life is. Daniel sat on the edge of the table, swinging his legs, absorbed in a little toy car, a tractor the nurse had given him. "Mom, look at these cool wheels," he blurted, showing off the bright green tractor. His freckled face glowed with childlike joy. "It's very nice, Danny," Hannah replied, forcing a smile and smoothing his light blonde hair. Dr. Thompson perched on the corner of the desk, her expression grave, and Hannah understood at once the news was bad, very bad. "Mrs. Miller," the doctor began, her voice gentle but firm, "the biopsy results confirmed our worst suspicions. Daniel has acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's a blood cancer. An aggressive form, already stage 3. Hannah's world spun. She grabbed the back of a chair to keep from collapsing. "But he was just a little tired," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Sometimes he had a fever, but nothing serious." "I know how hard this is to accept," Dr. Thompson said, compassion and resolve in her eyes. "But we have to move quickly. Without treatment, Daniel has no more than 3 to 4 months. With appropriate care, chemotherapy, radiation, possibly a bone marrow transplant, his chance of full recovery is about 75%. Those are good odds, Mrs. Miller. We can save your son." Hannah's lips barely moved. "Chemotherapy." "Yes," the doctor nodded. "It won't be easy. Side effects include nausea, weakness, and hair loss. But children often tolerate it better than adults. Daniel is young and strong. He has every chance to win this fight." Hannah looked at her son, innocently playing with the tractor, unaware that a few feet away adults were deciding questions of his life and death. Her heart tore with pain. Daniel looked up and smiled at her, his blue eyes shining with trust. "How much time do I have to think?" Hannah asked quietly. Dr. Thompson's brow furrowed. Her gaze grew even more serious. "Mrs. Miller, I understand the shock. But there is almost no time to deliberate. Every day matters. We need to start treatment within a week, 2 at most. What's worrying you? Finances? There are programs that can help." "No, not the money," Hannah interrupted, then, lowering her voice, added, "It's more complicated." The doctor leaned closer, her look piercing but not judgmental. "Hannah," she said, dropping formalities, "I've been an oncologist for 20 years. I have seen families walk through the hardest trials. If something is keeping you from deciding, tell me. We will find a way, but we cannot waste time." Hannah clenched her teeth. How could she explain? How could she say that in their Amish community, where she had grown up, where her husband, Abraham, and their whole family lived, modern medicine was considered a sin? That their faith relied solely on prayer and God's will? In their community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, there had been cases where people refused drugs and surgeries, choosing death as the highest expression of faith. They were called heroes, saints, examples to all. But how could Hannah think of that while looking at Daniel, her only son, her joy, her world? I will talk to Abraham," she said at last, her voice barely audible. "I'll come back." "Hannah," the doctor placed a hand on her shoulder, her voice warm yet insistent. "Look at your son. Look into his eyes and tell me you're ready to do everything so he lives." Hannah turned her head. Daniel sat there holding the tractor, softly buzzing to imitate an engine. His innocent smile ripped her heart open. "I will do everything," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Anything it takes. That evening, with Daniel asleep in his small room under a plain gray blanket, Hannah sat at the rough wooden table in the kitchen of their modest Amish home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Across from her sat her husband, Abraham, his dark beard neatly trimmed, his black hat resting on the chair beside him. He read the Bible by the dim light of a kerosene lamp, fingers slowly turning yellowed pages. Abraham was 10 years older, she was 28. He was 38, and in their community, he was respected as a man of deep faith, righteous and unbending. Abraham, Hannah began softly, her voice barely breaking the silence. We need to talk about Daniel. He lifted his eyes from scripture, calm and nearly impassive, as he always was when he stood on the solid ground of faith. What about him? The cough again. His tone was mild, but carried the familiar certainty. Worse, much worse. Hannah clenched her hands in her lap so tightly her knuckles blanched. I took him to the hospital, to an English hospital, not to Elder Jonas. Abraham's face changed at once. The calm melted into surprise, then into barely contained anger. His brows knit, his lips pressed into a thin line. What did you say? His voice was low, vibrating with tension. Hannah, you know our rules. We do not go to worldly doctors. The Lord has given us Elder Jonas. He prays for the sick and anoints with oil, as Scripture commands. Daniel is dying, Abraham. She could not hold back the cry, but lowered her voice at once for fear of waking their boy. He has blood cancer, leukemia. The doctor said that without treatment he has 3, maybe 4 months. Abraham paled. His hands on the Bible trembled. He closed the book slowly, as if trying to gather his thoughts. Cancer, he whispered, and in his voice Hannah heard a flicker of fear she had never heard before. Lord, have mercy. The doctors say he can be saved, she pressed on, the words tumbling out as if she feared she would not get them out in time. 75% odds, Abraham. Chemotherapy, radiation, maybe a bone marrow transplant. It will be hard, but children handle it better than adults. Our son can live. He can grow up, have a family, see the world. Stop. His voice was quiet but sharp as a blade. Stop right now, Hannah. Do you hear yourself? Chemotherapy is poison poured into the body. Radiation is. It is against God's design. We do not interfere with his will. Hannah felt anger boiling up through her despair. Her fingers bit into the table's edge. God's design, her voice trembled, but she held his gaze. Do you truly believe God's design is for our 6-year-old to die in pain? Can you believe that while looking at him? Abraham stood and began to pace, his heavy steps echoing on the wooden floor. He ran a hand over his brow, as if trying to think clearly. Hannah, I understand you are a mother. Your heart is torn, but we cannot yield to weakness. Remember Sister Ruth. 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with an illness. She refused worldly medicine, prayed with the community, and the Lord called her home. At her funeral, the whole congregation sang psalms. Her faith was an example to us all. Sister Ruth was 55, Abraham. Hannah shot to her feet, her voice climbing until it nearly broke. She lived her life, raised children, saw grandchildren. Daniel is 6 years old. He does not know what this world is, yet he has seen nothing but our fields and prayer meetings. Abraham stopped, his eyes shining in the lamp's weak light. He looked at her as if she were a stranger. And that is why he is pure, he said softly yet firmly. Without sin. If the Lord decides to take him, he will go straight to heaven, untainted by this world's sins. That is not a curse, Hannah. It is a blessing. Something primal rose inside her: anger, despair, a love for her son stronger than anything. Are you out of your mind? Her voice shook with fury. You really want our son to die because you fear the community's judgment. I want our son in God's hands, Abraham thundered, slamming his fist on the table so the lamp shivered. Not in the hands of English doctors who will fill him with chemicals and radiation. You know what Elder Jonas says about hospitals. They are temples of worldly science that reject God. Elder Jonas is not a doctor, Hannah shouted, eyes blazing. He knows nothing about disease or how it destroys a body. He knows only prayers, and prayers will not cure cancer. He does not need to know diseases, Abraham snapped back. He knows the word of God, and the word says the one who trusts in the Lord will not be put to shame. Hannah shoved the chair away. It clattered to the floor. She stood trembling, fists clenched. "Then let me be ashamed," she cried. "Let me be cursed, shunned, cast out, I do not care. But I will not let our son die when there is a way to save him." Abraham stepped close and gripped her shoulders. His hands were strong, almost painful, but in his eyes she saw not only anger, there was fear. "Listen to me, wife," he said quietly, voice like steel. "We will not do this. We will not go against the community, against our faith. We will pray for Daniel. We will ask Elder Jonas to hold a special service. The entire congregation will stand before God for our boy, and if it is his will, Daniel will recover. If not, we will accept it with humility." "No." Hannah wrenched free, eyes glittering with tears. "No, Abraham, you do not understand. This is not faith. This is killing. You are killing our son while hiding behind the Bible." He recoiled as if struck. His face went ashen. Pain filled his eyes. "How dare you?" he whispered. "How dare you say that? I love Daniel more than life. But I love God even more. I will not betray my faith, not for him, not for you." They stood facing each other, and Hannah suddenly felt a chasm open between them, deep, dark, impassable. She knew he would not yield, ever. His faith was harder than any argument, harder than her tears. "Then I will do it myself," she said quietly, her voice shaking but gaining a new strength. "What?" Abraham frowned, not fully grasping her words. "I will save our son," she repeated, meeting his eyes. "With you or without you?" He shook his head, his face hardened. "No, Hannah, I will not allow it. I am the father, and my word is the law in this household." "And I am the mother," she cried, her voice breaking into a shout. "And I have the right to fight for our child's life." From Daniel's room came a soft sob. Their voices had woken him. They both froze, listening to his quiet crying in the dark. "Look what you've done," Abraham hissed, his voice full of reproach. "Go to him, and do not speak of doctors again." Hannah went to her son, legs trembling, but a growing resolve in her heart. She sat by Daniel's bed, stroked his head, and sang the lullaby she had sung since his birth. His small face relaxed. He fell back asleep, clutching the toy tractor. But a plan was taking shape in Hannah's soul, dangerous, risky, the sort that could destroy her entire life. She would deceive Abraham. She would deceive the community. She would do anything to save Daniel, even if it meant going against her faith, against her husband, against everything she had ever known. The next morning, Hannah called Dr. Thompson from someone else's phone. She had borrowed it from her neighbor, an English woman, Mrs. Harris, explaining their home phone had suddenly broken. In their Amish community in Lancaster, mobile phones were considered worldly temptations and discouraged, but landlines were allowed for strict necessities like contacting suppliers or family matters. Hannah gripped the receiver so tightly her fingers went white, her voice trembling as she dialed the cancer center. "Dr. Thompson, this is Hannah Miller, Daniel's mother," she said, striving for calm. "Oh, Hannah, thank God." Relief was plain in the doctor's voice, as if she had been waiting for this call. "Have you made a decision? Can we begin treatment?" "Yes," Hannah answered, quiet but resolute. "But there are circumstances. My husband, Abraham, does not know, and he must not find out." Silence held on the other end long enough that Hannah heard the blood hum in her ears. "Mrs. Miller, I'm not sure I heard you correctly," the doctor said cautiously. "By law, we cannot start treating a child without both parents' consent. That is a legal requirement." "Please," Hannah felt tears surging but held them back. "Please help me. I will sign anything, take full responsibility. But if Abraham learns, he will stop everything. He is very devout." Our community does not believe in modern medicine. Another heavy pause, then a sigh compassion tempered by professional rigor. This is extremely difficult, Hannah. Technically, we cannot proceed without the father's consent. She hesitated. But I have seen the way you look at Daniel. I know you are fighting for his life. All right, come the day after tomorrow at 9 in the morning. We'll discuss the details and see what we can do. But Hannah, understand this. Chemotherapy is not something you can hide for long. The side effects will be noticeable. Your husband will ask questions sooner or later. I will think of something, Hannah whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude and fear at once. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Abraham worked construction in the nearby city, leaving before dawn and returning after the sun slipped below the horizon. That gave Hannah a precious window several hours to act without drawing suspicion. That morning, as he readied for work, she told him she would take Daniel to Elder Jonas for daily prayers for healing. It was a lie, and it slipped from her mouth with startling ease. You see, Abraham said, his face softening as he kissed her forehead, I knew you would understand, Hannah. The Lord will not forsake our boy. We will trust him. She looked away, unable to meet his eyes. Guilt pinched her heart, but love for Daniel was stronger than any shame. Instead of Elder Jonas's meeting house, Hannah took Daniel to the oncology center in the next town about 30 kilometers from their home where no one from the community would see them. Dr. Thompson arranged everything. Expedited visits, a separate room, minimal waiting so frequent trips wouldn't be noticed. She even arranged transportation. A nearby nurse agreed to drive them, sparing Hannah from hitching up the horse and buggy that might attract attention. The first chemo session was hard. Hannah sat beside Daniel, holding his small hand as the nurse placed the Roman 4. He stared at the needle in fear, his blue eyes wide, trying to be brave. Mom, does it hurt? He asked softly, squeezing her fingers. Only a little, honey, Hannah forced a smile. This will help you get better. You want to run the fields again, play with your friends, right? I do, he nodded, though uncertainty colored his voice. He frowned, thinking. But Dad said Elder Jonas will pray and God will heal me. Why do I need the medicine then? Hannah's heart skipped. She smoothed his hair, searching for words that would not confuse him more. Listen, Daniel, she said gently. Sometimes God sends help in different ways. Through prayers, yes, but also through doctors. Doctors are his helpers, do you see? They do everything they can to make you well. He nodded, though her answer did not fully convince him. Then curiosity flickered in his eyes. Does Dad know we're here? Hannah hesitated only a moment, but it was enough to feel the lie burn her tongue. Dad is very busy, sweetheart, she said, dropping her gaze. He does not need to worry about this. This will be our secret, all right. A secret? His eyes lit up. Children love secrets, and Daniel was no exception. Our special secret. Yes, she smiled, pain tightening in her chest. But you must promise not to tell anyone, not even Dad. I promise, he grinned, and for a moment it seemed everything would be okay. Then the side effects began. That night Daniel was nauseated. He vomited several times, his small body shaking with weakness. Hannah sat with him, holding the basin, wiping his face with a damp cloth, whispering soothing words. She tried to be strong, but each sob tore her heart. Abraham woke to the sounds and stepped into the room, worry written across his face. What's wrong with him? He asked from the doorway. His shirt hung open, hair rumpled. He looked lost, not like the confident man the community knew. Probably food poisoning, Hannah answered quickly, eyes down. He ate something that did not sit right. I gave him an herbal tea and some charcoal. He'll be better by morning. She lied so easily it frightened her. When you fight for your child's life, lying does not just become easy, it becomes as necessary as air. Should I call Elder Jonas? Abraham offered, voice full of concern. No, Hannah snapped too sharply, seeing his brows jump in surprise. She recovered fast. I mean, no need. I already asked him to pray for Daniel today. This is just his body cleansing. By morning, he'll be fine. Abraham studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Why would he not believe his wife? She had always been obedient, faithful the way an Amish wife should be. He returned to bed, leaving Hannah alone with Daniel. She sat listening to his quiet breathing and felt a weight grow inside her. Each lie was a stone she laid between herself and Abraham, between herself and the community. But for Daniel, she would carry that weight even if it crushed her. She knew more trials lay ahead and the side effects would only worsen. But she would not stop. Not now, with a single purpose burning in her heart, save her son. Weeks turned into months. Daniel grew weaker, and his fair hair began to fall out. That was the hardest to hide. One morning he woke in tears, clutching the strands left on his pillow. "Mom, why is my hair falling out?" he asked, blue eyes brimming. Hannah hugged him, her heart twisting. "It's because of the medicine, sweetheart," she answered, striving for calm. "But it will grow back, thicker and more beautiful. I promise." To Abraham, she said it was a childhood condition, alopecia, from stress or weakness. Elder Jonas, whom Abraham insisted on calling, only reinforced the cover story. The elderly man with a stern face and a long gray beard stood over Daniel with a hand on the boy's head. "The Lord is testing our boy," he proclaimed. "Pray more. Fast. Your faith must be firm as stone." Hannah sat through the prayer meeting, teeth clenched, nodding at the right moments, saying "Amen" with the others. Inside, she screamed with helpless rage. She hated the lies, but she feared the truth even more. And Daniel was getting better. Slowly, but the lab work showed progress. Dr. Thompson was cautiously optimistic. "He's responding well to chemotherapy," she said one day in the private room at the cancer center. "If this continues 2 more months, we can talk about remission." Hannah wept quietly, locked in the restroom so no one would hear. Tears of relief mixed with terror that her secret might come out. And secrets do have a way of coming out. One day, Abraham came home earlier than usual. Construction had halted because of heavy rain. He stepped inside, set his wet hat down, and immediately noticed Hannah and Daniel were gone. Strange she had not said she would be out. He waited an hour. Then 2. Anxiety swelled in his chest, and he called the neighbor, the English woman, Mrs. Harris. "Have you seen Hannah and Daniel?" he asked, striving for calm. "No, not today," she replied. "But this morning Hannah rushed off with the boy. She mentioned a doctor, but I did not ask." Abraham's heart stopped. "What doctor?" His voice turned sharp. "I do not know. Maybe Elder Jonas," the neighbor guessed. But Abraham knew Jonas was away that day. He had gone to a neighboring Amish community in York County. Abraham himself had called him that morning. Suspicion crept in cold and poisonous. When Hannah and Daniel returned that evening, Abraham sat at the kitchen table, his face stone, his eyes dark with anger. "Where were you?" he asked without raising his voice. "With Elder Jonas," Hannah answered automatically, helping Daniel with his coat. "Jonas is in York," Abraham said, each word cutting like a knife. Hannah froze, her hands still on Daniel's buttons. The boy sensed the tension and fell silent, his eyes darting between his parents. I misspoke," she stammered. "We were with Sister Rebecca. Daniel felt unwell. She gave him an herbal tea." "Do not lie to me, Hannah." His voice was quiet, but a storm brewed beneath it. "Where were you?" She looked at Daniel, then at Abraham. Her heart hammered, but she knew there was no point lying further. "Daniel, go to your room. Now," she said, trying to sound firm. "But, Mom," the boy began, voice trembling. "Go," she snapped. Frightened, Daniel ran to his room, leaving them alone. Abraham stood, his tall frame menacing in the weak light of the kerosene lamp. "Tell me the truth," he repeated. "Now." Hannah broke. Months of fear, deceit, and guilt burst like a breached dam. "At the hospital," she shouted, her voice shaking with tears. "We were at the cancer center. Daniel is undergoing chemotherapy, and he is getting better, Abraham. Better. The lab results are improving. The doctors say 2 more months, and he may be in remission. The slap was unexpected. Abraham had never raised a hand to her. Never. Her cheek flamed, and he stared at his palm as if he could not believe what he had done. You betrayed me, he whispered, voice raw with pain and fury. You betrayed God. You betrayed our community. I saved our son, Hannah cried, tears streaming down her face. He is alive, Abraham, alive, with a chance. Is that not what we wanted? Not like this, he roared, fists clenched. Not through sin, through worldly science that rejects God's will. He grabbed his head, pacing the kitchen, his steps booming on the wooden floor. Lord, what will I tell Elder Jonas? What will I tell the brethren? You have shamed us all. I don't care about Elder Jonas, Anna shouted, her voice turning hoarse. I don't care what the community thinks. I care that our son will live. At what price? Abraham stopped, his eyes blazing. At the price of his soul? At the price of our salvation? What's the point of salvation if our son is in a grave? Her words hit like a blow, and Abraham recoiled as if she had struck him back. He looked at her, hatred, pain, and confusion mixing in his gaze. You are no longer my wife, he said quietly. You are a stranger to me. Abraham, please. She reached out a hand, but he stepped back. The treatment will stop. Tomorrow, I'll go to that doctor myself and tell them. No, Anna lunged at him, grabbing his sleeve. No, Abraham, just 2 more months. Only 2 months, and he could be saved. I'm begging you, for his sake. He shook off her hand. His face was cold as stone. 2 months or 2 years, it makes no difference. You have broken our faith, and I will set it right. That night, Anna did not sleep. She lay staring into the dark, listening to Daniel's quiet breathing in the next room. Her mind raced for a way out. She knew what she had to do, and the thought terrified her to her core. She could not allow Abraham to stop the treatment. Not now, when Daniel was so close to recovery. She would do anything to protect her son, even if it meant going against her husband, against the community, against everything her life had been. At dawn, as the sky over Lancaster began to blush, Anna gently woke Daniel. She packed a small bag, a few changes of clothes, documents, a little money she had set aside in secret from Abraham by selling crocheted doilies to English neighbors. Her movements were swift but careful so as not to wake her husband. Daniel, get up, we're leaving, she whispered, tucking the blanket over his shoulders. Where, Mom? The boy rubbed his eyes, his voice sleepy and thin from illness. What about Dad? Dad will stay home, she answered, forcing herself to smile. We're going to another town for a while. It'll be our adventure, okay? Tired as he was, Daniel nodded, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Anna helped him dress, and they slipped out while Abraham still slept. She called a taxi to the bus station, bought tickets on the first bus anywhere, as long as it was far from the community, from the watching eyes, from the rules that choked. But Abraham woke earlier than she had planned. The empty house greeted him with a silence that cut deeper than a knife. He understood at once. Anna's bag was gone, Daniel's bed was cold. His heart clenched with fear and anger. He called Elder Jonas, his voice shaking as he explained what had happened. Meanwhile, in Dr. Thompson's office at the oncology center, Anna sat holding Daniel's hand. The boy played with a small toy tractor. His movements' sluggish chemotherapy was draining his strength. I can't go back home, Anna said, despair in her voice. Abraham will stop the treatment. He will not allow it to continue. Dr. Thompson sighed, her eyes on Anna with a mix of compassion and professional restraint. Mrs. Miller, I understand your situation, but legally your husband has rights as the father. Rights? Anna cut in, her voice trembling with anger. The right to let his own child die? Doctor, I know I'm breaking laws. I know he can legally stop me. But morally, I will not let Daniel die when there's a chance to save him. The doctor was silent for a long moment, looking out the window where raindrops slid down the glass. There are shelters, she said at last, for women fleeing domestic violence. Officially, your case doesn't quite fit that category, but I can make a few calls. You and Daniel need a safe place." "Anywhere," Anna whispered. "Anything, as long as he can keep getting treatment." They spent a week in a women's shelter in a neighboring city. A small, cramped room, a shared bathroom, but it was safe. Anna took a job as a cleaner at a local supermarket to bring in a little money. Daniel continued chemotherapy, and though the side effects exhausted him, the labs showed improvement. Every bit of good news was a beam of hope in Anna's darkness. But the Amish community did not back off. Elder Jonas, having learned from Abraham about Anna's flight, came to town with two brothers from the community. Someone on the hospital staff, connected to a related Amish settlement, had given them away. One day, Anna heard a knock at the shelter door. When she opened it, she saw Jonas, his stern face, long gray beard, black hat in his hands. "Sister Anna," he said, calm but cold, "we need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," she answered, keeping the door half closed. "Abraham is suffering. The whole community prays for you, for your return to the faith." "My faith is fine," Anna shot back. "It's you who are lost if you believe God wants my son's death." Jonas sighed, his eyes narrowing. "May I come in? Let's speak calmly." Against her better judgment, Anna let him in. He sat on an old chair, hat on his knees. "Anna, you are young," he began, his voice slow, as if he were preaching. "You do not grasp the depth of our teaching. We do not want Daniel's death. We want God's will to be done." "And if God's will is for him to live," Anna countered, "if God sent doctors to save him?" "Modern medicine is the work of a sinful world," Jonas replied. "Chemotherapy, radiation, these are against nature, against God." "Antibiotics are against nature too," Anna said sharply. "But you allow them when someone has pneumonia. How is this different?" Jonas scowled, clearly unprepared for such a challenge. "This is different," he said curtly. "How?" Her voice rose. "Explain to me how it is different." He stood, his presence seeming even more imposing. "I see you are too emotional," he said. "It is a mother's weakness, and I forgive you. But know this, if you do not return, Abraham has the right to seek a divorce. The community court will support him. You will lose everything: husband, home, your place in the community. Daniel will be considered abducted." "Abducted?" Anna barely held back tears. "I am saving his life." "You are taking him from his father. You are obstructing God's will," Jonas snapped. He lifted a hand when she tried to protest. "I give you 3 days. Come home. Stop this blasphemy. Otherwise, we will turn to the civil authorities." "Civil?" Anna could not believe what she was hearing. "You've always said civil laws do not concern us." "When it is about protecting a child from a mother who has renounced the faith, they do," Jonas replied coldly and left, plunging her into panic. The next night, Abraham came to the shelter. No Jonas, no brothers, just him. Anna opened the door and saw his worn face, aged by grief, with tear tracks at the corners of his eyes. "Abraham," she began, but he raised a hand. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. "I will not take Daniel. I promise. I just want to talk." She let him in. Daniel slept in the next room, his quiet breathing the only sound in the cramped space. They sat across from each other like strangers, a gulf between them neither knew how to cross. "Anna, I haven't slept since you left," Abraham began, his voice low and unsteady. "I prayed, spent hours on my knees, searching for an answer, but I heard only silence." She waited, not daring to interrupt. "Do you remember how we met?" he went on, eyes fixed somewhere in the past. "You were 18, you came to the community with your mother. So young, your eyes so clear, full of faith. I thought, she is my wife, sent by God." "I remember," Anna said softly, a tightness in her throat. "We were happy, weren't we?" His voice softened. "Those first years, when Daniel was born. But then, I don't know when it changed. Maybe I became too strict, too devoted to the community, forgetting what it means to be a husband, a father." Anna looked at him, And for the first time in many months, she saw not an enemy, but the man she had once loved. "Abraham, I don't want to destroy our family," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to take your son from you, but I cannot watch him die when there is a chance to save him." He shook his head, fingers gripping the table's edge. "I understand," he said quietly. "I finally understand. You are a mother, and your love for Daniel, it is stronger than everything, stronger than I realized." Hope flickered in her chest like a weak flame. "So you will support us?" she asked. "You'll let us finish the treatment?" He was silent long, too long. Then he lifted his eyes, and in them was so much pain that Anna felt her heart crack. "I can't, Anna," he whispered. "I cannot betray my faith. It is all I have. Without it, I lose myself." "And Daniel?" Her voice broke. "Does he mean nothing to you?" "He is everything," Abraham answered, tears running into his beard. "But if I betray God for him, what example do I give him? What is more important, faith or life?" "This is not a choice between faith and life," Anna cried. "It is a choice between life and death. And that is why it is so hard," he said softly. "Anna, I did not come to argue. I came to say goodbye." She froze, unbelieving. "Goodbye," she whispered. "I will not go to the police," Abraham said, rising and taking his hat. "I will not look for you. Do what you believe is right. But by the laws of our community, you are no longer my wife. We are divorced." "Abraham, please," she reached out, but he stepped back. "Take care," he said, pausing at the door, "and take care of our son. If he recovers, if God truly grants him life through these medicines, maybe I was blind. Maybe that is his will, but I cannot be part of it." He left, and the door clicked softly behind him. 2 months later, Dr. Thompson sat at her desk, her face brightened by a rare smile as she reviewed Daniel's test results. "Complete remission," she said, relief in her voice. "If this continues for another year, we can speak of a full cure." Daniel, whose fair hair was growing back in short curls, laughed and shouted, "Mom, I'm healthy, I'm healthy." Anna hugged him so tightly she could feel his small heart beating. Tears of joy streamed down her cheeks, and she did not try to stop them. "Yes, honey," she whispered, kissing the crown of his head. "You are healthy, my brave, strong boy." But the joy was bitter, like the aftertaste of the medicines Daniel had taken for months. They lived in a cramped rented apartment in a neighboring city, far from the Amish community of Lancaster. Anna worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices in the morning and waiting tables at a cafe in the evening to cover rent and the remainder of the medical bills. Daniel could not attend the community school, so she enrolled him in a regular public school. There, kids sometimes teased him for his plain clothes, for not knowing popular cartoons or video games, but Daniel proved more adaptable than she expected. Little by little, he adjusted, made friends, learned to laugh at jokes that had once been foreign to him. One evening, about half a year after remission began, there was a knock at the door. Anna opened and froze, as if the world stopped. Abraham stood on the threshold. He looked older, thinner, deeper lines around his eyes, but his gaze was softer than she remembered. "Hello, Anna," he said quietly, hat in his hands. "Abraham," she answered, barely audible. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see Daniel, if you'll allow it." Before she could reply, Daniel heard his father's voice and ran from his room, eyes lighting with joy. "Dad, Dad, you came," he shouted, throwing himself at Abraham. Abraham dropped to his knees and hugged his son so tightly his shoulders shook with sobs. "My son," he whispered, voice breaking. "My boy, God, how you've grown." They held each other for a long time, and Anna stood aside, unsure what to feel: joy, pain, or fear. At last Abraham let Daniel go and stood, eyes wet but trying to keep composure. "He looks healthy," he said, looking at his son. "Yes," Anna nodded. "The tests have been clear for 6 months. The doctors say the outlook is very good." "I'm glad," Abraham answered, genuine happiness in his voice. He hesitated, searching for words, then looked her straight in the eye. "Anna, I was wrong about everything." She did not know what to say. Her heart clenched at the memories of their fights, the slap, his words that she was no longer his wife. "After you left, I thought a lot," he continued, voice quiet but firm. "I prayed, read scripture, searched for answers. And one day I came upon the story of Jesus healing on the Sabbath, breaking the law. The Pharisees were outraged, and he asked, 'What is more important, the law or life?' 'Abraham,' Anna began, but he raised a hand, asking her not to interrupt. 'I was a Pharisee, Anna. I put the community's rules above love, above our son's life. I nearly lost him because of my blindness, and I asked God and you for forgiveness.' Tears ran down her face, and she could not stop them. She remembered his anger, his intransigence, his faith that had seemed unbreakable. 'I don't know if I can forgive,' she said softly. 'You were ready to let Daniel die.' 'I know,' he said, his voice shaking, 'and I will live with that guilt for the rest of my days. But if you'll allow me, I want to be part of his life. Not like before, not as a dogmatist hiding behind faith, just as a father.' Anna looked at him and saw in his eyes sincere repentance, love, and pain. She wanted to hate him, but she could not. Not now, with him standing before her, broken and changed. 'Do you still believe?' she asked. 'Yes,' he nodded. 'But now I believe in a God of love, not a God of strict rules.' 'And the community?' Her voice was cautious. 'I left them,' Abraham said, with no regret in his words. 'Elder Jonas excommunicated me when I publicly admitted I had been wrong. I said at the meeting that your actions saved our son. They can judge me all they want. I don't care.' Daniel, still standing by, tugged impatiently at Abraham's hand. 'Dad, come on, I'll show you my room. I have new toys, books about machines.' Abraham looked to Anna, a silent question in his eyes. She gave a small nod. 'Go,' she said. 'Show him.' As they headed to Daniel's little room, Anna sat down and hugged herself. She did not know whether she would ever rebuild what had existed between her and Abraham. Trust had shattered, and the wounds still bled. But he had changed, that was clear. And for Daniel's sake, for their son who had been through hell and come back, she could try. She could give him a chance, not as a wife, but as a mother who wants her son to have a father. She listened to Daniel laugh as he told Abraham about his toys, and for the first time in a long while she felt that maybe there was hope ahead. Not perfect, not painless, but hope. 1 year later, Daniel celebrated his 8th birthday in the city park, where a light autumn breeze swayed the leaves on the trees. Anna threw a party, inviting his new friends from public school and a few neighbors from their new house in the suburbs. She baked a chocolate cake and set candles on it, while Abraham organized games, tug-of-war, sack races, and the children shrieked with laughter as they ran across the grass. It was far from the quiet Amish celebrations Daniel had known as a small child, but his eyes shone with happiness. Anna and Abraham had not come back together as a married couple. They lived separately, each in their own apartment, but Abraham saw his son 3 times a week, took him on outings, helped with homework. They were building something new, not a marriage, but a partnership bound by love for Daniel. It was imperfect, but it was their new reality. Dr. Margaret Thompson came to the party carrying a brightly wrapped gift, a model tractor kit, knowing how Daniel loved anything with machines. "How's our little champion?" she asked, smiling as Daniel ran up. "Great!" he shouted, waving his arms. "Look how many guests came." Anna walked over to the doctor, her eyes full of gratitude. She hugged Margaret tightly, but quietly, not drawing attention. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I could not have done it without you." Margaret gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Anna, you made the hardest choice of your life, and you made the right one. Thank yourself." Anna stepped back, watching Daniel tear across the lawn with his friends, his laughter ringing like music. She had lost so much: the Amish community that had once been her home, her husband as a partner, the stable life where everything was predictable. But when she looked at Daniel alive, healthy, curls returning, Smile wide, she knew no loss could compare with this victory. Abraham came to stand beside her, a cup of lemonade in his hand, his gaze fixed on their son. "He's happy," he said quietly. "Yes," Anna answered, pride softening her voice. He hesitated, shifting on his feet. "I was thinking, maybe this fall we could," he faltered, worried about her reaction. "Family therapy, to try to understand each other better. For Daniel." Anna looked at him. The harshness that had once made her tremble was gone from his eyes. She saw a man who had changed, who had owned his mistakes, and was trying to be better. "Maybe," she said after a long pause, "we'll see." It was not full forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a step, a small beam of possibility. And sometimes possibility is enough to begin something new. Daniel ran up, grabbed both their hands, his face lit with joy. "Mom, Dad, let's cut the cake," he cried, tugging them toward the table where the candles already burned, casting a warm light on his smile. They went with him not as a perfect storybook family, not as heroes with a spotless happy ending. They were real people who had walked through hell, made painful choices, and were now building something new from the shards of their old life. Life was not black and white, as the Amish community taught. It was full of grays, of complicated decisions and compromises. Anna had made her choice. She saved Daniel, paying a high price, the loss of home, community, marriage. But as she watched her son blow out the candles, surrounded by friends and laughing as if the whole world belonged to him, she knew she would do it again, without hesitation, without doubt. Being a mother meant fighting for your child, even when the whole world stood against you, even when you were alone, even when it cost you everything. A mother's love was stronger than dogma, stronger than fear, stronger than death. And Anna proved it not with words, but with actions that changed her life forever. The end. Hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. The next story will be even more intense. But if you are under 18, don't even think about clicking next.